Sir, you must help us fend off the evil demon living in our house.
Right, I'll help you. Let me just take out my book on demon spirits and ghosts and we'll see what we can find. Alright, tonight you will be visited by 3 spirits. Oh shit, I may be reading from the wrong book. Seriously, am I the only one that noticed the similarity in stories there? Even more shocking is the connections here, because that book was written by Charles Dickens, and last night I saw a movie called Hereafter, which also has a supernatural premise like Paranormal Activity 2, and in that movie, Matt Damon's character likes the author Charles Dickens, and it even mentions A Christmas Carol, and that's a paranormal movie, just like the Paranormal Activity. There's too much connections! Okay, so Paranormal Activity 2. Now, I kind of like the original. There's a lot of problems with it. Some of them are the fact that it just doesn't hold up at all in repeated viewings, and that's due to the fact that there's a lot of unintentional humor and just a loss of interest, because this movie, it's basically, it happens a lot when you make a sequel to a movie where the original unexpectedly does very well, and that's something you can't recreate. Because the first one, it did so well because the movie was out about 2 years before it got a wide release throughout the country, and that gave it so much time. I mean, when people started talking about this movie before it, it was started coming out more and more theaters, there's so much hype building up, everybody's talking about, how scary and stuff it is, and it's very small doses of people, so nobody really knew what it was about on a wide scale, and as it get closer and closer, people were so excited by the time they got to see it that they almost scared themselves during the movie because there was that much hype. Now, you can't recreate that in a sequel because this movie, it just came out in theaters, there was no hype build-up to that. So I think that lost a lot of the creepiness factor that made the first one like such a fun experience in the theaters, but not really that much fun afterwards. Now, Paranormal Activity 2 improves on a lot of things from the first one, but then it does things absolutely horribly. And then it does things absolutely the same in the first one, like literally, some things that felt exactly the same. There's large portions of this movie where absolutely nothing happens, which is fine to build up suspense, because, you start to get there, be like, oh my god, is something gonna happen? And nothing happens, you're like, alright, next time something's definitely gonna happen. But, that's fine to do that, to build up that suspense. But that means when the payoff comes, it has to be so intense to make up for all that time where not a lot happens, which sometimes it does. Sometimes it does awesomely, and then other times it's like this build-up to nothing. It makes the movie creepy, but never really, really scary. I mean, sometimes it's like, holy crap when something happens, and then other times it's like, and like everybody around me's freaking out. I'm like, relax, it's just a door closing. I mean, sometimes it's basically just pop scares, but without the imagery, just the really loud sound effects. It's one of those movies where, it's one of those handheld movies that actually complements the story nicely, because I like the setup of the story, I like the premise, I like the way they tell the story, I find it generally interesting with the whole build-up of suspense, but a lot of times I'm just not rewarded fulfillingly for my interest. While there's still some character reactions that seem almost artificial at times, I like how they stick with the unknown actors, and I find these characters a lot less annoying than the ones in the first one, and I also like how they add 2 new characters rather than just have a couple, but I also like how they're 2 non-speaking characters, because the fact that they can't communicate but their presence is still there adds a creepy and interesting factor. Despite its recognizable flaws and the fact that it's just still got a lot of unintentional humor, but that's probably largely due to the fact that people are shrieking their minds out on stuff that's not that scary. The movie is still unnerving and can be an enjoyable experience, so for that, it does succeed. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Hey you, Mr. Demon, making the door slam. What are you doing? It's 3 in the morning. I got the baby crying, I got the dog barking. I don't need you adding to it, so please, shut the fuck up.